Karen said, I think that Helen, that's in Greek mythology, she's the muse. So I had the muse in that dream. Briefly, I'll tell you that my one reason I came to poetry is through the poetry of Kenneth Patchen. And when I was too ill in my early 30s to work, I lost my career as a RN. I was really depressed, and Karen gave me a book of Kenneth Patchen's and said, you might like these poems. Well, for some reason, I had always been writing, but I never considered myself a poet. I sat down, this tells you how long, I was a typewriter, and I typed out 1 or 2 poems a day. And by the 3rd day, when I started to do it, I realized I just felt like I was inside the language, and I thought, I'm there, I can do this. That's when I started writing. And I also wanted to say that before I read this book that David introduced, it's really an art book. It's a silk screen cover, and it's just a gift from the universe to have my first book just be this beautiful hardcover. And I was able to lay out every page. So this is why, what I tried to tell people before I, about my work. Please listen as you would dream. In the dream, nothing is sequential, yet there is nothing that is out of place. All times exist within the dream. All stories are significant. Inner worth accumulates, dancing shadows from a bubbling spring. So this book is from 10 years of dream journals. I saw the call for submission, and I said, oh, I've already written that book. Of course, it wasn't just the dream journals. There's a little work involved. So now for my poem, The Muse, of the Muse. It doesn't have a title. How long, she asked, will I be your muse? We were beyond the end of our love affair, sitting side by side on Westcliff. The horizon bared its teeth. There is no other, I told her. Let me walk a block, a year, another lifetime, and still I'll carry you. When I look in a mirror, when I remember a dream or suffer a storm of nightmare, you're in that 80s music that didn't last, in all the wine I cannot swallow, that space between breaths where God's supposed to be. But I have no God, I have a muse. In the pizza box, you, not pizza, you have filled in all the empty spaces, muse, because you were tender and rough, my reckless blessing. I ended up with a muse, not a lover, longing, kaput, jack of hearts, inebriated, that paradise, that fall from grace. This poem is titled Jade. And I say in here, and it's true, I believe Big Sur is paradise on earth. Lay down in a bed of jade at the surf at Pfeiffer Beach is primitive, troubled. I told her my beliefs about death are not about faith, but about experience. In this bed of jade, a zillion beliefs endure, enduring like the heavy fog over Big Sur, where you could lay down with me near boulders laced with rose quartz. Death's expansive here, the briny wind assaults us. It's easy to have a primitive love. Here's some red yarn, winded up in knots like a sailor would. That's red for hope, red for blood. A future of seals and kelp beds, of beach, flotsam, jetsam, wheeling sun above the fog doesn't reach us. We're stranded without dreams, without imagination. How we will become our deaths, you with such Buddhist charms. We need a changeling love. I communicate with my dead, those mystical, just in the other room all the time, as my grandfather told me in a dream. Where did we go when we first became lovers, and where did we go when we knew it was ending? I call Big Sur paradise on earth. One time we saw a cougar drinking water from the river at Andrew Malera. I was reading haiku and looking for rocks, serpentine, the state stone. We didn't end then. We moved on, left the past behind. Years accumulate like waves, but we won't be infinite. While jade is millions of years old, waves bring it up from the seabed. That's the kind of infinite we cannot be. I'd like to be a speck in that boulder, blown by wind, speck into sands, the shore where we could dance. Will we dance on Pfeiffer Beach, on smooth bed of jade moonlight? Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you. Were you going to go in a little bit more right now, or you're going to
Was
finish
that
in the
15 minutes?
Probably not. I think it's less.
Well, I have I'll read this. I have one here and then we'll go to the break.
Great.
Okay. Now there's some references here for people who are familiar with American culture in the 20th century. When the 20th century was your birthplace. Sleepy Hollow is the home of Irving, Washington Irving, the writer, and his home is up in a castle on the Hudson River. The Creature of the Black Lagoon is a monster movie. Vincent Price was an actor in monster movies. And Kmart blue light specials were a big thing in the 60s, 70s. They'd have this, you'd be in the big department store and they'd bring this thing around, they'd push this cart and then where you go is the sale. My dad used to buy me big costume jewelry rings. When the 20th century was your birthplace. When the 20th century was the time we found ourselves acting hysterical, like teenagers with jelly beans, like teenagers with moonbeams, and hysterical with laughter at Poodle Creek. Our TVs closed up shop at night, played the Star-Spangled Banner, then screens went to snow, our radio dials tuned to AM. We slept dreaming of strangers, the ones we hadn't met who would change our lives, the ones we'd meet on trains where thin women held chihuahuas in small cages on their laps. There were no dining cars. We carried apples and thermoses of black coffee while the Hudson rambled outside. Our windows were clouded, our strangers sexy. Train rumbling past Sleepy Hollow and unnamed castles. Who could concentrate on books in the 20th century? We survived New York City. 42nd Street was torrid, Central Park lurid. No chance we'd win the lottery. The Village was folk music, so we welcomed punk, its blast, thrash, darkness sound. We'd yell, we'd mosh in the 20th century. With atomic mushroom death looming, we learned civil defense drills in school, crawling under our desks, those heavy wooden ones, our only barrier between nuclear blast and first grade. There were UFOs in the 20th century. We considered those strangers. Were they benign teachers or protectors, or evil like the creature from the Black Lagoon? Vincent Price and JFK were kings of the 20th century. We were misrepresented, misunderstood. Tupperware parties were spiritual. Wondrous mercy that brought us Kmart blue light specials. So we'd want our ashes carried out of here in those little white plastic Chinese takeout bags that say, "Have a nice day." Thank you.
No way. Thank you so much, Joanne. 1 second. I